In this on-demand tutorial, we will be discussing how to score the school-related items within the CANS and how to write notes for strengths and needs. We will begin by looking at the school items within the CANS. Items that capture school concerns or strengths are number 8, school violence. Remember, this is a historical trauma item. Number 22, educational setting. This is a strength. Number 41, school behavior. Number 42, school achievement. Number 43, school attendance. Number 86, daycare preschool. This item is found within the 5 and younger domain. And number 92, educational attainment, which is found in the transition to adulthood domain. Number 8, school violence. This item describes the severity of exposure to school violence. Note that this is a trauma experience item, so it can be historical and is cumulative. This item is also looking at whether the child has witnessed violence or been the victim of violence in a school setting, not if they have been violent in school. When looking at the rating scale for number 8, school violence, we see a distinction between a 1 and a 2. For a 1, the child witnessed some fights or violence in school, but it did not involve themselves or a friend. For a 2, the child has witnessed violence in the school that resulted in significant injuries, or a friend had injuries, significant or minor, resulting from school violence, or the youth has directly experienced violence that caused minor injuries, or there is chronic violence in the school setting. And then looking at a 3, we can see the distinction there is that the child has witnessed a death resulting from school violence, or a friend has been seriously injured due to school violence, or the youth has directly experienced significant injuries or lasting impact from school violence. Number 22, educational setting. This is referring to the strengths of the school system or the child's preschool setting, or may not reflect any specific educational skills possessed by the youth or child. Note that this item is rating a strength. This item is not about how well the child is doing academically, but rather if the school setting is working well for the child and family. Does the child have a need that is being met by the school? If the school is not in session, rate the last 30 days when school was in session. What do we mean by that? Well, if, for example, the child is on summer break and school is not currently in session, we'll be rating the last 30 days before school ended for summer break. Remember, this is a strength item, so 0 and 1 will identify a strength. The distinction between a 0 and a 1 is that the 0 indicates that the school or someone in the school is going above and beyond to ensure the child's educational plan is working for them. A 1 indicates the child's educational plan or setting is effective. We see that when we get to a 2, the child is in school, but there may be some unmet needs. And a 3 is a child that should be in school and isn't, or a school setting that is not working for that child. There are many unmet needs. We also see that there's an NA option for this item. NA will only be used for children who are not in school due to their age. For example, they are too young or they have already graduated. Number 41, school behavior. This item rates the behavior of the child or youth in school or school-like setting. A rating of a 3 would indicate a child who's still having problems after special efforts have been made. For example, problems in a special education class. Note, this item is rating a need. And again, if the school is not in session, rate the last 30 days when school was in session. We often talk about how mild, moderate, or severe is subjective. Instead of focusing on those descriptors in the manual, I suggest you focus on how the child's behavior fits with the rest of the description. For instance, when we look at a 1, we see a child is having some relationship problems with teachers or peers. They may have had 1 detention. A 2, child is disruptive to the class resulting in sanctions. They may have had suspensions or multiple detentions. And a 3, the child is severely disruptive in class. Their placement at the school may be in jeopardy due to their behavior. Again, we see an NA option, and this should only be used for children who are not in school due to age. Number 42, school achievement. This item describes academic achievement and functioning. Note, this item is rating a need. Again, if the school is not in session, rate the last 30 days when school was in session. On this item, we see that a 1 is that watchful waiting spot. The child is doing okay in school, but there could be a need for a little extra help with school achievement, so it is on your radar. A 2, the child may be failing some subjects and or may be at risk of failing the current grade. In this case, you would want to try to put some action plan into place to help bring the child's grades up. At a 3, the child is failing most subjects and is most certainly not going to pass the current grade. Or if they are more than 1 year behind, you will rate it a 3. At this level, it would be critical to put a plan into place to help the child with academic achievement. Once again, we see an NA option that will only be used for children who are not in school due to age. Number 43, school attendance. This item is looking at concerns with school attendance. Note, this item also will be rating the last 30 days when school is in session if school is out. Again, here we see that the 1 is a watchful waiting spot. The child may have had some attendance problems. For example, they may miss up to 1 day per week on average. This is something you would want to take note of and keep an eye on. But we also see that there's a bit of a historical piece to this level. If the child had a problem with attendance in the past 6 months, but is now starting to attend regularly, this may also be something that you want to keep an eye on and monitor. At a level of a 2, you would want to start putting a plan into action because the child is missing at least 2 days per week on average. At a level of a 3, the child is generally truant or refusing to go to school, or the youth has dropped out. Again, we see an NA option that will only be used for children who are not in school due to age. Number 86, daycare preschool. This item is looking at a child's behavior and functioning within a daycare or preschool setting. Note that this is rating a need. This is also in the 5 and younger domain. Again, mild and significant are subjective, so when scoring this item, think of a 1 being that the child may have some concerns in the daycare preschool that you want to keep an eye on. A 2 would be a good rating for a child that has separation anxiety or difficult behaviors, and these are impacting their functioning in the daycare preschool environment. A 3 may be for a child whose behaviors are disruptive and they have been asked to stop attending. We will only be using an NA option for children who are not in a preschool or daycare setting. Number 92, educational attainment. This rates the degree to which the individual has completed their planned education. Note, this item is rating a need, and this is in the transition to adulthood domain, which looks at youth that are 14 and a half years or older. A 0 would be for an older youth who has graduated from high school and not obtaining a college degree does not impact their vocational functioning. They have already met their educational goals. We see that a 1 is a youth who has had educational goal and is making progress towards that goal. Again, this is something you may want to keep checking in on to make sure that they are on track. A 2 is a youth who has a goal but has yet to make progress. Maybe a youth who knows they want to go to college or vocational school after high school, but has not applied anywhere yet. You may set a plan in place that helps them meet the goal of sending out applications. A 3 is a youth with no educational goals and that it is interfering with the individual's lifetime vocational functioning. An example may be a youth who has dropped out of high school. You may be setting up a plan for them to get their GED. We will now practice scoring a couple of the educational items. How would you rate number 22, educational setting, for the following scenario? A youth in second grade is in a Title I program after it was determined that they could use a little extra help with reading and comprehension by the school. The youth attends his Title I class once a week, and his grades in reading have improved. In this scenario, a 1 would be the preferred score. This level indicates a child who is in school and has a plan that appears to be effective. School works fairly well with the family and caregivers to ensure appropriate educational development. This would not be a 0 because although the school environment is a strength, we are not seeing them exceeding expectations or that someone is going above and beyond. How would you rate number 42, educational attainment, for a youth in fourth grade who is getting mostly B's and C's in school, but is struggling with math and has received an F on their last report card? For this scenario, 2 would be a preferred score. The child is having moderate problems with school achievement. They may be failing some subjects and or at risk for failing the current grade. In this scenario, you may want to put a plan into place that addresses getting extra help in math for the youth. We will now review some tips on how to write notes for identified strengths and needs. For any identified needs, notes are required for anything scored a 2 or a 3. Notes should be concise, yet explain why there is a need for the youth in this area. An example for number 36 legal might be, youth was arrested last year and is currently on probation. The note should reinforce the rating selected for that item. When possible, document concrete information such as dates or timeframes. For strengths, notes are required for anything scored a 0 or a 1. Notes again should be concise, yet explain why that item is a strength for the youth. An example for number 28, community life, may be, youth is involved in a community-based arts program. The note should reinforce the rating selected for that item. Please note that there is a glitch in SACWIS that allows you to score a 0 or 1 and not leave a note. But if you are scoring a 2 or a 3, you are required to leave a note. Please remember to leave notes for 0s and 1s, identified strengths. General tips for leaving notes. The same note should not be left for multiple items. The note should be specific to the item being scored. You should not be copying and pasting long dialogues from the IA. And the note may be viewed by other stakeholders on the case to assist their work with the youth or family. Example may be that these notes are used in the substance abuse screening or the mental health screening. We will now look at some examples of what to do and don't when leaving notes for strengths. An example of a don't for a strength may be number 20, family. Child has family strengths. This note doesn't tell us why that child has a family strength. On the other hand, if we left a note that said child has a strong relationship with both of his parents and his grandparents and fictive kin, we now have a better idea of why family is a strength for that child. Similarly, if we look at number 22, educational setting, we don't want to leave a note that just says child does well in school. Again, this doesn't give us much information. However, if we left a note that said child attends school district preschool, where he is engaged in activities that are appropriately educational and address his speech and language needs, we now understand why the educational setting is a strength for that youth. This page shows us some do's and don'ts when leaving notes for identified needs. An example for a don't note, on number 95, safety, mom was leaving the child with dad. We don't know why that would be a safety concern with this particular item based on this note. But if the note stated mom was leaving the child in the care of the father who was hallucinating about hurting the child, we then will understand why that rating level was given to that item, number 95, safety. Similarly, for number 75, failure to thrive, a note that states medical records indicate failure to thrive does not give us much information. However, if the note stated baby lost weight after being released from hospital, suspected he was not being fed enough or formula was being improperly prepared, failure to thrive documented in medical records, we now have a better understanding of why number 75, failure to thrive, was scored as a need. I do want to note here, earlier we had said not to copy and paste from IA or other records, but in the case of something like failure to thrive, copying information from a medical record about that failure to thrive concern may be appropriate here. We will now look at some practice questions about leaving notes. True or false? Notes are required for a score of a 0 or 1 on strength items and a score of 2 or 3 on need items. True. You will need to leave a concise yet descriptive note explaining why an item was scored either a strength or a need for the youth. True or false? It is helpful if you can give a time frame or date in your note. True. An example for number 66, runaway, scored a 2, may be youth has recently expressed their desire to leave their parents' home and did run away from home of parents 6 months ago after an argument. We see that we have a bit of a time frame here, and it explains why that item was a need for that child. True or false? It is okay to copy and paste large amounts of information from the IA or police report. False. Your note should be concise, yet explain why that item is a strength or need for the youth and be specific to the item scored.